Howdy, folks. The phone number to contact your representatives and find your representatives is in the description. Please like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, comment. This show is supposed to be based on your comments, not the news and what I'm thinking of. But also stay tuned to the end. A little clip from my favorite kind of old-timey YouTube video. And, well, enjoy the show. Hello, the internet, and welcome back to What I Think I Know with your host, Dan Brigantino. Well, let's get into a little bit of what I think I know. What I think I know is you probably have no idea what that video clip to opener was about. That was a clip from the Cincinnati fight, beatdown, I suppose. It's not really a fight. It was pretty one-sided. But that was just kind of proof that, if you're upset about the things I said last week and showed last week, the video of the fighting gorillas, that's not racist. And it's not because comparing humans to monkeys is pretty darn common. They say we have some 99 point whatever percent genes in common with monkeys, which actually, I think it was like in April, it was proven that it's more like 85% similar to monkeys, but glossing over that, because for many, many years, it has been 99%. So, no, I'm just comparing people's fighting styles to gorillas' fighting styles. They, people who don't know how to fight, they, and whatever, whites, blacks, doesn't matter who's doing it, you look like a monkey fighting. There's also that point where if you listen to that clip, you'll hear a fella yelling, "You're at the wrong party, they at the wrong party, they at the wrong party." Like I said last week, he repeats it like 5 times. Very annoying. But it's just telling these poor white people bloodied on the floor that you shouldn't have come to a black event. It's black only. You're at the wrong party. Simple as that. But anyway, today on the docket, we have what kind of an American would an Aussie man be? Should parents be terrified of Assembly Bill 495? And what happened to about 400,000 children? Let's dig in. In 1996, Australia gave up about 700,000 guns after the Port Arthur massacre, which killed about 35 and injured about 18. It's pretty darn bad. Even compared to American, it's pretty darn bad. Our biggest are like 40 and 50, which is the Pulse nightclub thing. And then the Vegas as well. They were a little bit worse than these, but I mean, that's pretty darn bad. I would like to see none of that ever again anywhere around the world. That would be ideal. But after that, yeah, Australia gave up, supposedly they say they gave up all their guns. Well, they didn't really entirely, but they gave up almost 750,000 guns, which is really sad. If you have ever seen the video clips and stuff, they're just all these super cool bolt action and semi-automatic World War II rifles. Everything's made of wood and all that. They're true pieces of history just being destroyed, which is super sad. But let them do what they want to do, I guess. Still in Australia, about 40% of all homicides are committed with firearms. That was kind of a high amount right there, I figured. It kind of made me curious, like, what's our rate and all that? In the U.S., it's about 78% of all homicides are committed with firearms, which makes sense. I mean, we have more guns than everybody else does. That's not quite true, but we have a lot of guns. So if you're going to be a criminal, you're going to use the easiest method. If I'm going to rob a bank and my options are go through an obstacle course, jump through a pile of broken glass, and French kiss a great white shark, or I can just take some cash out of the back pocket of some dude. Um, Given the option, I'm going to take the pickpocket real quick. If I was a criminal, of course. All that's to say, just criminals are going to find the easiest way to do being a criminal. Anyway, this 78% thing, it made me think. I don't know if anybody watching ever heard. I think it started like 2015, 16, where they said, well, I've got actually the headline of the um, uh, not document, but article that I'm going to read. And so this was the old meme that the U.S. is third in murders throughout the world. If you remove Chicago, Detroit, Washington, I'd assume that means D.C., St. Louis, and New Orleans, the United States is then 189th out of 193 countries in the entire world. This is by PolitiFact, written by Manuela Tobias, which it's weird. I don't know. It's just a strange name to me. Glossing over that, the article says, it's a meme on social media following the Parkland shooting in Florida. And bear with me here. It's been circulating since about 2015. We decided to take a closer look. Is the United States third in murders? Are a few outlying cities responsible? And they say, to answer that question, that's false by any standard. It's just a strange way to say something like that. That's false by any standard. You've gone through every single standard and not found one of them to be true. I bet with the tricky people in our government, somebody would be able to figure out the math on that and make it work. So I can't imagine it's false on any standard. But that's not really the important part. That's just kind of me harassing them. So this, let's see, our count of the UN's data places the US in ninth. We used the most up-to-date count data from 2007 to 2015. But then right after that, they go to say, however, experts told us the number of people killed is not a very useful metric. The number of homicides is not a useful metric when looking into the number of homicides. Okay. Alrighty. That's very interesting, but fine. Let's use the UN's metric. They say we do per 100,000 kind of thing. It's just kind of shrinking all the numbers. By that standard, the US ranked 94th. So we were what? We were ninth, according to the UN, or PolitiFact. And we did the same sort of math, and now we're at 94th. So that did kind of just prove it, just different numbers. We're working kind of like with the same stuff in the fire conversation, where all the numbers were just skewed and nonsensical. Essentially, we're working with, here is America's number 3, and then we take out the 5 cities, and we're 183rd or whatever it said. And they're saying, no, that's not right. It's actually 9 and 97, 93rd. So all they did was take a slightly broader array of numbers and squish them in like that. So they proved themselves false. That was very interesting. Whatever answer that I found, I guess it's not really an answer, but and then I went off looking at other stuff. I wanted to see, try to find those numbers for myself and do the math on my own, which obviously 193 countries, it's rather hard to do all that. And I ended up just stumbling across this like top 10, I think it's 10, might be more than 10, top 12 or something list of most deadly countries. On this list, lowest to highest death rates or murder rates, Mexico, then Myanmar, Anguilla, Saint Martin, the French part. It specifically says the French part. The Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, Saint Kitts and Nevis, Saint Vincent and Grenadines, Belize, Lesotho, Honduras, Saint Lucia, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Jamaica. Jamaica and U.S. Virgin Islands are both the highest at about 50 homicides per 100,000. I thought that was very interesting. I said to myself, like, the U.S. Virgin Islands, they can't have more than 100,000 people at all. And I went looking, and apparently they've only got about 180, the U.S. Virgin Islands only have about 84,000 people in total. Which leaves us to some fun math. If we're working with out of 100,000, we've got 50 in the Virgin Islands. We take off, 16% from the 100,000 to bring us down to 84,000. So then we got to take 16% off of the 50 people who die. I believe that would be 6. So we're working with 42 people out of 84,000 die every year of homicide specifically. I just thought that was a wild number. I grew up in a town. We were the second episode of Gangland. It was really bad. By like the end of January, we would have some 30 already. It was a really wild place to grow up. It is better now. Not perfect by any means, but it's a lot better now. And fondly enough, what fixed it was doubling the police force. We essentially doubled the number of police in our city, and I mean, we still have issues, obviously. Every city's got issues, but we're no longer at the top of the list like we used to be. We're much farther down. Obviously, I would love to see it even further than that, of course. But what are you going to do? You can only do so well, right? So that was that fun stuff. Now, basically what I found out was kind of all the numbers seem to be baloney, estimates made up. Estimates is a light way to say it. I don't think they're truly just like estimating. I think they're literally like sitting down and going, well, what do you think the number would be? Well, James, I think the number might be, I don't know. I seem like I hear it every weekend. It's probably like 400,000. That number's actually coming up later. But anyway, that's my guess as to how they're coming up with the numbers. Just like, well, feels like 100,000 today. But anyway, basically you can forget about everything I just said in the last 5 minutes because none of it really matters. I didn't find any answers that I was looking for, and everything just kind of confused the situation even more. But after getting rid of guns, we're back to Australia. After getting rid of guns, just like every other country who decides that that's the right way to go, knife crime spikes really hard. Gun violence is still happening like we saw. It's 40% of all homicides in Australia are with firearms. Though guns are a little bit harder to acquire, criminals will always find a way. Always. There goes my lighting. There we are, back. Criminals will always find a way. The old bank robbery that I just said there. it's an easy way and it's a hard way, but I'm gonna get the job done regardless. So recently, super recently, machete attacks have been so prevalent that the government has actually they started like amnesty drop boxes. So there's these little things all over. I don't know what cities in particular, but they're all over at least one of the provinces or states or whatever they call them. I want to say it was Queensland, the northeast of Australia there. But anyway, the northeast is, I'm pretty sure, where this is mostly taking place, but not entirely, I'm sure. But anyway, they have drop boxes, amnesty drop boxes for machetes. They're trying to outlaw machetes. They're trying to get them off the streets, get them out of people's houses because people are using them to hurt each other. When you get rid of guns, they will find another tool. Now, I have a machete just sitting kind of at the foot of this little... Oh, gosh darn it, everything's backwards. At the foot of this little... That was a struggle. At the foot of this little ladder thing here, I've got two machetes sitting there. One of them's a little bit obnoxious and unwieldy. I don't use it very often. That one's more for clearing heavy shrubs. So if I go backpacking on certain types of property, like not public lands and stuff, you can't really do any bushwhacking out there or anything. Sometimes you can, certain properties, like I said. But certain properties, backpacking, hunting, camping, whatever the heck I'm doing, I might bring that machete. It's a little bit more sturdy. But my other machete I use to just like trim the hedges in the front yard. It's one of the easiest, quickest tools. You just grab a handful of hedge and easy peasy. I've even had a lot of my neighbors walk by and go, "Wow, that's really handy. I might start doing that." I suggest you do if you never have. But anyway, a machete is just a tool. If you take my machete away, I'm going to find something else. And guess what? I'm just standing here looking at this. I just happen to have this. This is for a camping stove. This is a handle, and I could use this little edge to lift up and manipulate vents and stuff while I'm cooking on my stove. But if I were to just I could bend that. I could break it off. I'm sure it's pretty brittle steel. I could cut it off. Whatever it was, if I'm cutting it off, I might just use that angle grinder to attack somebody. But like, this is all you need is 2 inches of penetration to kill a man. That's more than 2 inches right there. Okay, here's another thing, just still sitting here, just a screwdriver. Okay, well, here's a pair of scissors. That'll do. These are old rusty scissors, but they're sharp as heck. I tell you, I mean, I could hit you in the head hard enough and in the right spot with this, or smash it on the table and use the shards. Like, I don't understand what you think you're going to do by banning guns even. That's not going to help anything because people will just go to that. And then you ban the next thing. Like in England, you're not allowed to have... Let's see, I've got a knife right here. I don't know if it has any writing. That might actually be considered right. This is a really crappy knife. Don't judge me. But that little S right there might just be enough to make this whatever their equivalent of a felony is in England. You're not allowed to have knives with words on them because apparently that's like more menacing, and that means you're going to use it for crime. Whatever. Anyway, so Aussies have kind of gone off the deep end there, unfortunately. Prayers go out to them. Seems to be kind of pretty much just like whatever Middle Eastern immigrants who are actually doing it. I haven't seen any reports of any actual Aussies, somebody we would consider Australian. It's always somebody with an Indian accent or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that or whatever, but they should probably just be in their homeland instead of Australia. But just to kind of put all this together here, The Aussies gave up their guns, which is effectively the equivalent of giving your government full control over the citizens' lives. Uh, they now, or Aussie men at least, still seem like to us, we still see them as, you know, the bold, brash, brutal, oh, let's go wrestle a fucking crocodile. Oh, gosh darn it. I think I almost made it. Maybe I didn't, but I thought I was doing pretty well on censoring. But anyway, we see them, as bold, brash, masculine, heavy drinkers, all that. But simultaneously, they're terrified. They have no control. The citizens have no control over their government. They're getting flooded with these machete wielding maniacs, and they've got no ability to help themselves. So essentially, they're heavy drinking and lack of fear of like the animal life gives them that bravado that we always see. Strong, big, all straight. I'm going country there. By big Aussies, drinking all the water and liquor, or well, they call them stubbies, beers. They call them stubbies over there. Anywho, back on track here. So that heavy drinking, lack of fear of animals, plus their impotence when it comes to fighting to save their country, it makes them no different than lifted truck Americans. That is my theory of the day. Welcome back. I haven't had this segment in a while. But yeah, this is my theory of the day here. I'm not talking about just any old American with a lifted truck. There are purposes to lift your truck, whether it be off-roading, really big one, or, and I'm not talking about dirt roads, I'm talking about rock crawling and mud bogging and sand pits and whatever, dunes, all that stuff. Oftentimes you'll need a little bit more ground clearance. So you lift your truck. There's also towing. Might be very useful to have a lifted truck when you're towing. At least the rear end, we call it a leveling kit. Let me see if I can get my arm in there. So if my fingers are the front, that's the hood of the truck. If you see a truck that's driving around like this, all stink buggy, more than likely it's what we call a leveling kit. It sticks the rear end up in the air, so when you load it up with a bunch of weight, the truck sits flat. This is used for trucks that are mostly towing. They're predominantly used for towing instead of getting around town or whatever. But there is a third type of lifted truck. I almost did two. There's a third type. I'll put up a picture right here. We call it the mall crawler because instead of rock crawling, these fancy, shiny, like silver chains as trucks, posing as trucks, and I'm talking like a chain. They're useless for literally everything. They look too nice. You've done paint jobs and all sorts of stuff. You don't want to scuff up your bed, so you're never going to haul anything. You're never going to tow anything because the truck is generally too tall in those cases. You won't even fit a trailer on there, or your trailer will be sitting like that. Of course, there's other things going on there, but really, it's just a useless truck. Something I forgot. Take a look at the tires and the rims. The rims are enormous, and the tire is just a thin veneer over that rim covering it. So if you bump into a curb gently, you blow a tire, just like you would on a sedan. Low profile tires is what we call them. Very common because they make the tire and wheel a lot lighter, with a light rim and less rubber. Rubber's the heavy part. Steel rims can be pretty heavy, maybe even heavier than the tire that they're supporting, but there's all sorts of different composites people use to lighten the rims. Most predominantly is aluminum. Most rims, just kind of factory-made rims and stuff, are aluminum, but they do magnesium and all kinds of different things. And it's to make everything lighter. If you have to spin something, excuse me, if you have to spin something, it's easier to spin it if it's lighter. So, therefore, less work you're making your car do to spin that wheel. Anywho, what those wheels are good for is driving down the road, and that's it. They're not good for anything else because they're not going to protect you from anything. When we're actually off-roading and stuff, we generally, most people will have very small rims and very enormous tires. We want the wall of our tire, the sidewall of our tire, to be as big as possible because that is where we have kind of our compression. And then we lower the air pressure. So instead of, full pressure, 32 psi, they're this big. Lower it down, now they're this big. But the patch, the important part, the contact patch, if you were to turn that wheel to the side, now you're kind of looking at your car head on. The width of that wheel and the size, the overall circumference, the circumference will judge how big the bottom section is that touches the pavement. And then the width of the wheel, or tire rather, tells you how wide the patch of traction patch is going to be, or contact patch. These lifted trucks are useless for everything. I was talking about why you air down. You want that contact patch to be nice and big. Also, that if this is your tire and this is a rock, it might actually kind of grab it like this. Helps a lot when crawling. Anyway, that's my theory today on Australian men. They are, I don't know if you understand that, but here, maybe this one. They're, lap pinkies. They got big trucks because something else ain't so big. And by trucks, I mean they drink and have the bravado when they wrestle animals because lap pinky. That's Australia for you. I love the country. I think it's an awesome place. It was, at least. I mean, I'm sure most of it's still great now. It's just a little bit different. Anywho, moving on. What happened to 400,000 children? Now, researching it now, everything wants to say it was more like 350,000 children. It doesn't matter. The Biden administration has been saying it was 400,000 before they left office, so it's probably 400,000. Now, during Biden's reign of terror, open borders and open invites to the dregs of the world to come on in and suckle on the taxpayers' teats. An approximately $13 billion a year industry charging some $10,000 to $30,000 a person was created, or at least maintained and expanded, mostly expanded. The industry's been there for many, many years prior to the Biden administration, but they allowed it to expand with their kind of open invite. They had billboards and stuff south of the border saying, "Oh, just download the app and come on by." But this led to kind of what we live in now. For me, I see it walking out my front door in my small little farming town, where about every third person has been replaced with somebody wearing a turban. And again, not that there's anything wrong with that. I will do a episode on Islam, throw a little Christianity, a little Judaism in there just to kind of show the difference between those three religions, because I am fairly well versed on all three of those guys. I did a lot of searching in my younger years. Didn't know what to do with life. Still don't really, but figuring it out. Anywho, it's nothing like what it was just about 5 or 10 years ago. Kind of the whole country over. But glossing over the horrendous loss of our American culture, especially in places like California and Minnesota, all the really left-leaning states. In the midst of Biden's border policy, led by the border czar herself, I really don't even want to say her name. I'm so tired. I could hear her cackling. Um, but yeah, Carmela. By the way, she now is saying that I believe she's saying she's backing off of being or running for California governor, and she's going to look for a non-voted government position. Um, Basically, what she just told the world was she now realizes herself that nobody's ever going to vote for her anywhere. That was pretty funny. But anyway, during this border policy here, we actually lost approximately 400,000 children. They call them migrant children, which is sort of true, but I think it needs an extra word. A migrant is somebody who is migrating, somebody who's moving from one place to another. While all these illegal immigrants are migrating, they're doing it illegally. So I think we should throw on illegal migrant children. And oh, no child is illegal. Yeah, they are. Their parents are living in Mexico. They sent the child alone with a coyote. Or their parents are maybe even in South America or maybe even the Middle East. We have no idea because most of these people came across the border, just walked past anybody, didn't tell us their names, didn't tell us any information, so we have no idea who they are or where they went. Um, but anyway, these 400,000 children are the ones we know of, actually. They were brought into the country by coyotes, sent across the border by coyotes, and then picked up by our Border Patrol. Um, you guys probably hate Border Patrol agents like you hate ICE, but um, this 400,000 number means that they saved the lives of 400,000 children because those children were more than likely going to die or be R-worded on the way over. Uh, Now, these 400,000 children, unfortunately, the Border Patrol gives them to whoever in the government gets them. I don't know. And then the children are hooked up with sort of a like foster care type of thing. They call it a sponsor family. This family is not vetted. They are just volunteer families. They are not often citizens of the United States. They pretty much can just be any old random person who volunteers to take in a child. Um, Now, the children were given a hotline that they can call in case anything goes wrong. Although we do know from most abuse cases in America, or I guess they're probably the same across the whole planet, but in abuse cases, for the most part, people don't tend to try to escape, um, especially not the children. Generally, the children need to be taken away by the mother, kind of thing, in an abusive family. The young children, a 5-year-old is not going to fight off a 35-year-old man, whether it be his father or foster father or whatever it is. The children are not going to be reaching out a whole lot. And it seems like they may have assumed that because they have a program, so, or not a program, but they have a system set up where somebody 30 to 37 days after handing the child over to the sponsor family, they're supposed to make a call to that family and check in, see how the kid's doing, make sure it's okay. Now, unfortunately, oh gosh, I've lost my numbers. Okay, here we go. So, unfortunately, out of the 400,000 calls that should have been made 30 to 37 days after handing over that child, 40% of them, 40% of these calls either did not happen or were not documented, which probably just means they didn't happen. If it's undocumented, generally that's somebody going, Oh crap! I was supposed to do that. Oh yeah. You know what? I just forgot to write it down. That's all. They happened. I promise. I just forgot to write it. Um, I also have a note. I can't remember the percentage, but a lot of them happened um, around a year after being like pushed. Like, oh, 30 days. That was 30 days ago. It's 2 months away. Oh shoot! Well, I can't do it right now. Give it another month, and that went on until they were sometimes over a year. And in most of those cases, the family had moved and changed their phone numbers and stuff. They couldn't get access. Um, and then there's another. This is like an easily Googleable number. Um, and I don't know what the percentage of children who actually like reached out and called um, the hotline that they were given. But out of 400,000 children, 65,000 of them did use that hotline and were promptly ignored. The phone calls were not answered. 65,000 of these children looking for assistance of some sort. Maybe it was 65,000 children going, "Hi, I'm so happy you put me with this family. They're terrific. Everything's lovely." Um, the odds of that happening, minuscule. Um, if I was really happy with the family, I'm not going to go call the random government agent, or not even the government agent. It's not even going to be the person I've talked to before. It's going to be some random stranger who's going to go, "All right, thanks, I guess. Have a good day. Bye." So why call and even try? But that is about an eighth of all the children. And now that it could be skewed. I could be messing that number up because some of these children could have called multiple times. Maybe it was a 16th of all the children and they all called twice. Or half of them called once, the other half called twice, or three, and half of those actually called 3 times, or whatever the math is. Tried to do something fancy there. But anyway, yeah, and then I've got 37% were unsuccessful. I don't know where that number came from. Let's see. Oh, this is fun. An analysis of a specific period, January to May, following Biden's inauguration, found that fewer than 15,000 follow-up calls were placed, and the percentage of unsuccessful calls increased from 26% to 37%. Yeah, so essentially just in those 3 months, fewer than 15,000 children were called, and about 40% of those calls failed. So really, it's more like 7,000 phone calls were made. If it's a solid 15,000 phone calls made and only 40% actually connected, well, it's 60% were actually successful. 60% of 15 is what, eight and a half, something like that, 8,500. But we know it's not 1,500, or 15,000. It's less than that, whatever. So we're looking at about 7,000. Bonkers. I don't have too much more to say about that. Just kind of a wild thing I found. There is just so much news happening and all that. And this is not supposed to be a news podcast. Again, I'll have people on soon. I'm not ready. I haven't even reached out to these guys. I know they know that I will be at some point, but I haven't even reached out to try to make a date yet. This is not supposed to be a news program. Just letting you know. But anyway, I just found that terrifying, and there's so much news going on. It's like my stack is, you can't even see it, but it's way up there. And then when I do an episode, it goes like this. Boink. And then just the next day, it'll go whoop. So it's impossible for me to cover everything I want to at the moment. Maybe someday, if you like, comment, subscribe, give me comments is most important, because the whole show is supposed to be based on your comments. Um, uh, but yeah, if you guys send this around, share it to as many people as you can. Maybe it will be um, big enough that I will be able to do multiple days a week. And in that case, it'd be a little more fun. We can get a lot more done. And our next segment does actually pertain to our last segment that we just finished. Our next segment is, and I can't remember how I said it in the opening, but oh, I do. Should parents be terrified, and I mean terrified, of Assembly Bill 495? Very important to know. I think I talked about this a number of episodes ago when I talked about I think there was 5 bills that California had either recently passed or was trying to pass. This might have been one of them. I can't remember, but we're going over it again because it's slimy. So what is it? They call it the Family Preparedness Plan Act. That sounds wonderful. That sounds like we are going to set up a plan for families. Maybe you could just download it on the internet and it shows you how to escape a burning building. Your emergency plan. The Family Preparedness Plan. Be prepared for an emergency. What it really is, and it's supposedly for migrants or migrant families, illegal families, but it does apply to every human resident in the United States. It's a terrifying bill. Let me pull up my tab here. AB 495, that means Assembly Bill 495, titled, I thought it said tied to, titled the Family Preparedness Plan Act of 2025 is a California bill focused on family preparedness and child care, particularly for immigrant families. This bill expands who can authorize, this is the critical part. This bill is not preparing anybody or giving somebody a plan, families a plan kind of thing. It is doing neither of those. What it is in fact doing is expanding who can authorize medical and school-related care for minors. It limits cooperation with immigration enforcement by schools and child care facilities and establishes model policies to protect immigrant families. So first off, this is California. If you're a migrant here, you really shouldn't need protecting. You should be good enough to make it on your own. That's why we're allowing you into the country, because you're supposed to not benefit from us. You're not supposed to, as I said, suckle on the teat of the American taxpayer. You're supposed to help our country. Now, I was born and raised here. I'm, 4th generation, 5th, 6th, I don't even know on one of my parents' sides. I could be Mayflower old on my mom's side of the family. Nobody knows. We know we're very old on that side of the family. But I say this to say I'm a true American. If I wanted to sit back and suckle on the teat, abuse the system, well, the system was not built to be abused, but that is what people do. But I have the right to do that. I have the right to use that system. Me and the fellow Americans have all paid into that system. Now, you migrate here, you illegally cross the border, and sneak in and then stay for 30 years. Generally, you're not paying into the tax system. At least not the same way as all the rest of us. You might pay in, like, when you buy food. But generally, if you're, like, actually illegal, if you have a green card, that's different. But if you're actually illegal in this country, you will be getting paid under the table. You're not going to have your social security number, at least. You might have stolen somebody else's and you might work through theirs. And that way you may end up paying taxes. But regardless, The system was not built for migrants. It was not built for people from elsewhere. I'd love to be able to solve all the world's issues, but unfortunately, all the world sees things a lot differently than we at least used to here in America. Some of us still do. Um, we do have a culture. Uh, it's a very beautiful culture, to be frank, and most other countries don't have it. England tried to extradite American citizens for things they said on the internet. That's batshit. That's wild right there. So just be careful out there. Please call your congressman. This is not a we get to vote on it. This is just the higher ups get to deal with that. So please call your representatives. Give them a call. Tell them, hey, this AB 495, I've looked into it. I don't like it. It's sounds like it's going to put my children in danger. If they get kidnapped, then their kidnapper will be able to sign all this paperwork for them. If they are not like violently in my head, when I was a child at least, a kidnapping was somebody would break into your house or grab you off the porch or the backyard and throw you in a van and do whatever. Nowadays, kidnapping could be like, just recently there was, I don't remember enough about this situation to go into too much detail, but you can Google it. There was like a 17-year-old girl who ended up going to her teacher's house and living with their teacher because she wanted to do training things, and her parents didn't want her to. She had been brainwashed by the school and went and moved in with her teacher at 17, and it was found legal as far as I can remember. I don't think it was in California. I can't remember where it was, but still terrifying that somebody could just stake claim on your child. You know what? I do think actually she was returned to her parents or something. I can't remember. Don't take my word on that for anything, except for the fact that a underage girl moved into her teacher's house and her parents wanted her back, obviously, but were not allowed to get her back. So anyway, AB 495, call your representative. Please tell them no thank you, because this gives just any kidnapper the ability to, and again, kidnapping, that means also, teacher or sponsor or guardian or whatever, gives them the right to authorize medical care, do school-related care. I don't know what school-related care is. But anyway, be careful out there. Last but not least, actually kind of talking about your representatives, I want to talk a little bit about gerrymandering. It's really big right now. Everybody's screaming about it. So gerrymandering is legal. It's perfectly legal in some states at some times. It's legal in every state at certain times. Texas's law says, their constitution says that they can adjust the borders of the constituents, basically. There's a more proper term for that. But the area in which people live is workable. Basically it's, okay, well, this town is really Republican in the northern side of the state, but the southern side of the state, not so much. They're more liberal, so let's allow them to vote separately. And this is how we end up with our electoral college, or at least the number of votes on the electoral college is based on the number of seats in the House of Representatives. I think I've gone over this before, actually. I can't remember the number, 436 seats? I can't remember. But there's several seats, right? There's a fixed number of seats. And then depending on what state has what population, the seats go from one place to another. And then depending on what percentage of that state is Republican versus Democrat, that's how you decide how many Democrats and how many Republicans are going to represent that state. For instance, in California, I forgot how many people we're working with here. Yes, California has 52 representatives in the House. So California has 52 seats, which means we need to split 52 seats, Republican versus Democrat. I thought these numbers were a little different. This might not be accurate, but maybe it is, right? I thought it was slightly different, but it's still not where it should be. 12 seats are held by Republicans, and the other 40 are Democrats, which is not quite appropriate because California is actually split about 41 to 44% Republican, and 59 to is that right? 59 to 54. Oh gosh, I'm doing that math poorly. But anyway, upper 50s% Democrat, which means, logically, you would think 50% of the seats, 41 to 44% of the seats should be Republicans, and the rest should be the Democrats. But that's not the case, and that's because of gerrymandering. This is where, you could take a city, take Sacramento, for instance, okay, and say it's mostly Republican, right? I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not saying that for fact. I'm just saying, let's imagine it's mostly Republican. But there's some houses right here that are or neighborhoods right here that are Democrat. Then some over here that are Democrat, some over here that are Democrat, and one right here that are Democrat. So instead of allowing the whole city to just be Republican, the Democrats do what they call gerrymandering, and they draw their own lines, and let's see if I can do this all backwards, and get that line to just connect all of those cities together. So it's a weird worm of blue through a giant red square. They're doing that because you need a certain number of citizens per district to make it a district. And without that certain number, you're just kind of shit out of luck. You don't get the votes. But fortunately for the Democrats, they figured out how to get the votes. And it is just by kind of whittling out, that's a Democrat, that's a Democrat's house, there's a Democrat lives there, oh, there's another one. It's just all pack those people into a squiggly freaking thing. Even though, maybe they're 300 miles apart and have zero anything in common with each other. I say all that to say Gavin Newsom needs to shut up. We do have a special election coming up in November to actually vote on this, and I may have said it earlier, but it's going to be named something really sketchy to me kind of thing, but it's going to sound really soft. It's going to be like the Preservation of Voting Rights in California Act or whatever. It's going to sound like it's a good thing for everybody. But really, it's just changing our state's constitution to allow them to gerrymander. That's all it is. Texas has the constitutional right to do so, not the federal constitution, but the state constitution. California does not. We have a different system. It's supposedly based on, by the people, for the people. It runs through a private organization that is left-leaning, so some help that is. But hey, it's done better than what the Democratic Party actually would have done. I said Democratic Party. They're not very democratic, installing their own leaders and everything. This is going back years ago. This was before I even liked Trump. Like, he had just announced that he was going to be running. Well, he announced probably a little bit before the primary, and I was like, this guy. I hadn't really heard anything about him yet. I'm like, he's Donald Trump. Are you kidding? That's just a joke, publicity, whatever. Because I used to watch The Apprentice a little bit with my parents when I was real young. So I kind of knew a little bit about him, but not enough to think, he'd be a great president. It turns out he's freaking awesome. But anyway, I don't remember what I was saying just then. Oh my gosh, Bernie Sanders. He was the first time I realized there is absolutely no way anybody could ever trust the Democrat Party ever. Is when Bernie Sanders clearly had the win in the primary. They actually voted for their primary that year, and somehow Hillary won. So that was the first time I saw them screw with the vote, which was pretty impressive. But anyway, that's the show. I hope you guys enjoyed. I sure did. I guess I was going to say I don't have an outro yet, but I think I kind of do. Last week I did my funny little video, the Subaru commercial. I hope you enjoyed that. And this week I have another little funny video for you. So hope you enjoy. Oh, God bless you.
Go.